Coming up, it's being billed as the Davos of the Midwest, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation to host the inaugural Global Economic Summit. Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger is here to explain who's coming and why it could be a game changer for Indiana for years to come. Plus, Easter Seals Crossroads has been a leader in the nonprofit community for many years in many ways, including its reliance on social enterprise for a significant portion of funding. How its latest acquisition could help the nonprofit serve even more children and adults. And the holidays mean sweet treats for everyone, not just cookies for Santa. In this month's Trendiana segment, let the world be the inspiration for your holiday treats as Brittany Smith shows us some global dishes you can find right here in Indiana. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Well, the world will be coming to Indiana in 2020. The inaugural Indiana Global Economic Summit will be held in April. Convening of CEOs, business, academic, and economic development leadership from around the world and the state of Indiana for conversations, collaborations on the future of the global economy. And I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger with details on the idea behind the event and why he and others think this could be a game changer for Indiana. And Jim, welcome to the program.
Always good to be with you.
So the Davos of the Midwest, the World Economic Forum in Switzerland that gets the cream of the crop from the business community and elsewhere. That was kind of the inspiration for this summit next April.
It is. This is really an extension of the governor's next level connectivity. And it started for me, I tease, Johnny Cash has never been anywhere I haven't been. But it started with going to each and every one of the 92 counties, taking Indiana to the world, bringing the world to Indiana. Then every region of the United States, and now 28 different countries on 56 international trips. And now we have Routes Americas coming, February 3rd through the 5th, where we'll have 800 different people coming, representing 80 airlines and 300 international airports, bringing them to Indiana, taking Indiana to the world. And it dawned on us at one point, the governor had a vision to say, like connecting flights across international waters, domestic flights, direct flights. Also, we want to continue to get people to understand and know about Indianapolis. So Routes America, bringing all those people here in February is going to be great. The sports, the championship series with all these sports, any one city would love to get one of them. And this is just the next extension to hold an Indiana Global Economic Summit because we are global and the world gets smaller every single day.
Give us an idea of some of the people who may be there and what kind of a high-profile event this is expected to be.
It's going to be extremely high profile. I would say this is going to be like the business Super Bowl for Indiana. So this was inspired by the number of international companies we have in Indiana that do work all over the world. Cummins, 105 countries, Lilly, 100 countries, and I see them everywhere I go. And so to take all of our international-based companies, bring them together that do work internationally, and even ones that would like to do work, small businesses that want to do work, and then to bring in the 39 countries that invest in Indiana, 39 countries that employ over 200,000 people in 1,020 businesses. Bring consuls general. We're going to have a special advisory council, international advisory council with 15 consul generals from all the countries we do business with, government figures, universities. We're going to bring students in a big way. We want students to attend. So this is bringing the quality minds together to think tank, and we're going to look at the future of agribusiness. We're going to look at the future of advanced manufacturing, aerospace, and defense. And we've got some star-studded speakers lined up, mainly because we have so many great relationships now. So the CEO of Saab will be here from Sweden. The CEO of Tate Lion will be here from London. Lou Holtz will speak at the lunch on Tuesday, Monday afternoon. And the list just goes on and on and on. We've got ambassadors. It's a lot, Gary, like you've experienced. The governor has made the Indianapolis 500 an international event hosting 18 nations last year in his suite. And we are really becoming global, tripling our FDI 3 times. Yeah. 3 times in the last 3 years.
So this will be a place for conversation, not necessarily a sales pitch for Indiana, Indiana, but having that leadership from around the world here, you view that as an opportunity, in a sense, to sell Indiana and to have these CEOs see what Indiana is about.
Absolutely. When I travel, I tell the Indiana story that I didn't write a sentence of, but I enjoyed from a private sector viewpoint. So when we have to talk about Indiana. We bring people here. We don't have to talk about Indiana. Indiana shows so well in the hospitality, the Hoosier hospitality, and the professionalism of this state and these businesses. It's the highest honor I've ever had to represent this state. And it's going to be so great to be hosting all these people I visited with from all 28 countries here in the heart of the heartland, the crossroads of America, Indiana.
Only have 20 seconds, Jim, but 2019 was a big year for international investment. As you look at 2020, you mentioned the Routes Americas Conference, this summit. Do you think 2020 could be the kind of that tipping point for international investment and jobs in Indiana?
I think so. As I said, we've tripled our investments since 2016, but we're up against a lot of things. We're up against presidential impeachment and fears of recessions and trade barriers and workforce. But I think we've done well this year in spite of that, and next year we're going to be overcoming some of those, and we'll be right back up. All
right. Jim Schellinger is the Indiana Secretary of Commerce. Jim, as always, welcome to the Global Economic Summit in Indiana next April. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, also making headlines this week, two emerging Indianapolis-based tech companies. They have new owners. Sixter is an email signature marketing platform. It's been acquired by Georgia-based Terminus. As a result of the deal, Sixter employees, including CEO Brian Wade, will join the Terminus team. Atlanta-based Terminus is an account-based marketing platform led by former ExactTarget Chief Marketing Officer Tim Kopp. And Mimmer Corporation, a cloud-based software platform for computer sciences courses, has a new owner, HackerRank, a developer skills company that's headquartered in California. It's acquired Mimmer, which is based in Indianapolis, but began as a Purdue startup, a student startup. HackerRank says its platform helps businesses evaluate software developers based on skill. Coming up next, another look inside the Indianapolis business with a 90-year commitment to innovation and supporting entrepreneurial ideas like 120 Water Audit. More with leadership from the Heritage Group. That's when we return. Stay with us. It's time to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. Well, this week we conclude our look inside Indianapolis-based The Heritage Group, a multi-generational Indiana success story spanning 9 decades. Today, The Heritage Group is made up of more than 30 operating companies and 5,000 employees doing business around the globe. In part 3 of our series, we look at another example of the company's commitment to innovation. The New Ventures Group is the Heritage Group's newest division, a platform designed to support innovation and new business creation, including investment in young and startup companies. New Ventures is led by Kip Fry, a former vice provost of innovation at Duke University and a nationally recognized investor and serial entrepreneur in Research Triangle.
We have really 3 basic activities or sections of it. One is HG Ventures itself, which is our corporate venture arm. We make, as with 120 Water, we make venture investments into startup companies. Okay. We also run the accelerator in conjunction with Techstars, and that we bring 10 companies from all over the world here, and they're on site for 3 months, and we mentor them, help them with their business plans, and hopefully lead them on to getting funded. Okay. And then we also run an internal incubation function that allows our research group and our operating companies to come up with business ideas, technologies, and we take them then and invest in those and really try to grow them up.
The first Indiana investment of the unit's corporate venture arm was leading a $7 million round for Zionsville-based water program management software firm 120 Water Audit.
120 Water, terrific team of really passionate entrepreneurs led by a founder who we thought just had tremendous potential. A really interesting, growing, large market. The whole world of being aware of and communicating about the water quality in your facility or in a system is something that's going to be very, very important in the future. And it was a company that had gotten a lot of traction, that had the right set of customers, but was early enough for us to make a meaningful contribution when we led the round.
We're a platform of cloud-based software and kits that government agencies, public water systems and facilities use to manage their drinking water programs. Our beachhead market has been all of the activity around the new legislation and infrastructure focus on lead programs and getting the lead out. Every single state and even at the federal level, it's a bipartisan issue. There's lots of billions of dollars of funding being put into states to repair our infrastructure, create more programs around lead that get the lead out for vulnerable populations, and we simply don't see that slowing down. So we're kind of at the precipice of the new drinking water regulations, and we only intend to go further. I think the last time we talked, Gary, we were maybe in 9 states. We are now in 14, including 4 statewide contracts. What's most, I think, impactful for us is our software has been implemented in over 175,000 taps. So residential or school facility and child care facility with the impact reach of 5.5 million lives. So we work with Newark. We work with the city of Chicago. Again, I mentioned the statewide contract, so we are getting with traction with the audience that we need to.
For Fry, whose background includes running 7 startups, the Heritage Group's big bet on innovation is part of momentum that he sees in a state that is poised for bigger things.
I've gotten to see it and be a part of it for a year and a half now, and it is so poised to just take the next step. We've got multiple time entrepreneurs kind of coming into the system. We've got more venture capital interest both locally and around the world. We've got business models and opportunities that really kind of speak to what's going on in the Midwest and in lots of different areas that, like materials, that make a lot of sense for us. So we're very excited, bullish, glad to be a part of what's going on here, and we think it's gonna be a real growth story in the next decade or so.
Coming up next, how one central Indiana business puts thousands of people with disabilities to work with good-paying jobs in areas like manufacturing, assembly, packaging. Learn more about the long-standing mission and impact of Easter Seals Crossroads. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Purdue Polytechnic High School is expanding beyond Marion County with a 3rd campus in South Bend next fall. The school network currently has 2 locations, one at Circle Center Mall in downtown Indianapolis, the other in Broad Ripple. Its curriculum is focused on science, technology, engineering, and math. The South Bend school intends to enroll 125 students in its freshman class next school year. Mishawaka-based charter bus company Royal Excursion may soon be hiring soon-to-be jobless employees of Coach USA, which last week announced plans to shut down service in Northwest Indiana. Royal Excursion is in talks with the operators of the Indiana Airport Super Saver shuttle bus service, which connects Northwest Indiana to Chicago airports. The company says it intends to start service early next year. And at Terre Haute, Honey Creek Mall has a new name thanks to Rachel Scott of Quincy, Indiana. She won a renaming contest that garnered more than 1,000 entries. The mall is now Haute City Center. Out of the Box Ventures bought the mall in May and launched the renaming Honey Creek contest in September. Well, since 1939, Crossroads Industrial Services, a division of Easter Seals Crossroads, has been providing companies with flexible, customized manufacturing, assembly, and supply chain solutions, increasing production capabilities, lowering costs. Well, recently, Easter Seals made its 3rd acquisition, Technofit Inc. in Brownsburg. And with more on how it will help the nonprofit serve even more individuals with disabilities or special needs, pleased to be joined by CEO J. Patrick Sandy. And Patrick, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gary.
First of all, I think most people know the Easter Seals name, been around for a long time, but give us really the model and what Easter Seals Crossroads is all about.
Sure. We provide services to folks with disabilities from the beginning of their life, infancy, all the way through the lifespan. So that can take the form of therapy services, it can be employment services. We try and graduate our services as the person grows older.
Yeah. So you engage at an early age. And in terms of the impact, last year Easter Seals Crossroads served nearly 9,000 individuals with disabilities or special needs. So a lot of impact.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. In terms of funding, and I think this is an interesting part of the Easter Seals Crossroads story, is the way you do business. And as a nonprofit, you understand that it's getting tougher and tougher. 25% of your revenues, of your support, comes from philanthropy, right?
That is absolutely correct, yeah. And there's a lot of research showing that philanthropy is dropping off in terms of grant opportunities and even the general public making donations to organizations like Easter Seals Crossroads.
So as I look at it, you're a nonprofit doing business more like a for-profit entity, looking at ways to generate revenue. Great example, a recent acquisition of Technofit in Brownsburg.
Correct. Yes, we sort of implemented a plan a few years ago to start trying to solve our own problem in terms of the loss of funding. So we looked first at purchasing companies that we could bring into our industrial service division that would provide a margin to support the other side of the house. Those are the programs and services that are supporting folks with disabilities and being as independent as possible. Yeah. And Technofit is our third acquisition.
Yeah.
Our first one was Lucida, which is a electronic medical record scanning company. Mm-hmm. We brought that company into Easter Seals Crossroads Industrial Services, I think in 2013. Mm-hmm. That went well, and so we brought in another company. This was one that we purchased out of Chicago, and the name of that company was in Tunis. And now it's called Crossroads Controls, and it makes pressure switches for HVAC applications in heaters, boilers, that sort of thing, mostly for commercial use.
And really what you're doing is unique, I think unique in Indiana. Would that be an accurate statement?
It is an accurate statement. It's really built on the model of being a social enterprise. So we're providing opportunities to support our cause, our value, our mission, and we're doing that by generating income ourselves to do that. We
only have about 30 seconds, but I thought it was interesting, the Technofit acquisition. That company in Brownsburg had multiple potential buyers, but ended up, they wanted you to be the buyer.
Yes, and what we did was we had them come to Easter Seals Crossroads and see our industrial service division and see what we were doing in terms of supporting folks with disabilities and the number of people that are actually working there. And they say when they left the building, they made the decision to sell the company to us because not only it was going to allow an opportunity to continue their legacy, but it was going to move to a higher cause where it was to support people with disabilities.
Easter Seals Crossroads continues to make huge impact in Indiana. And J. Patrick Sandy, the CEO of the organization, thanks for being on, doing business in a unique way and making an impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, coming up next, a holiday treat as we check out sweets from around the world found right here in Indiana. From Italian sweetbread in South Bend to French cake and caramel to ginger snaps made by the Sisters of St. Benedict in southern Indiana. There's Yelp's Brittany Smith in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, this holiday season, break out beyond the U.S. border for your dessert inspiration. From Italian panettone cakes to Mexican tamales, in this month's Trendiana segment, Yelp Midwest Regional Director Brittany Smith highlights Hoosier businesses offering a global taste of tradition. And Brittany, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you know, Christmas is a traditional holiday, but so many of those traditions can be found, global traditions can be found right here in Indiana.
Exactly. You can be pulling from different cultures and infusing new traditions with your family.
Bûche de Noël?
Yeah, Bûche de Noël.
Bûche de Noël,
wonderful
thank
job.
you.
That's right. I know.
A product from France, and that's the Cake Bake Shop.
Yes, the Cake Bake Shop has their own beautiful version of it. Traditionally, it's a Yule log. It comes from France and French colonies. Their version has a zesty orange, buttercream, candied oranges on top. You can order it online and even have it shipped. to someone special in
No
another
calories
state.
involved there.
No calories. You can smell the chocolate from right
Okay,
here,
yeah,
right?
You can. You literally can. Another tradition, tamales from Mexico. Three-in-one restaurant. That's also here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, located on 86th Street. You can't have, when you think of Mexican Christmas, it goes hand in hand with tamales. It's something traditional they do each year. Three-in-one restaurant is one of the most popular spots in the state for tamales on Yelp. And they have beef, chicken, several different varieties. It is a delicious spot.
Okay, I'm not a fruitcake fan, but I know there are a lot of people who are.
That's right. You got to mix it up.
That's right. So we go to northern Indiana for Fruitcakes by Deb. That's in Middlebury.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about this business, because fruitcakes are usually kind of the joke of the holidays, is these are non-preservative fruitcakes. So they're different from the other ones you've probably had in the store. Real fruits, no additives in there. They even have a tropical variety, a chocolate version. She's really mixing it up.
Some of these locations, I think, may be newer. One that is not. One that is a tradition is the Heidelberg House.
Yes.
In Lawrence, right there on Pendleton Pike. And Springerly is a German dish.
Got the anise flavor. It's a simple dough. They use these wooden carved stamps to make beautiful designs on them. They get orders from around the world for their Springerly every year. They're bustling right now.
They're cookies.
Yes, it's
right?
a cookie. It's a white cookie, and you have beautiful designs on each one. You can see them behind the counter.
Another traditional business here in our city is Shapiro's Delicatessen.
Yes.
And speaking of cookies, they have several cookies, right, for Hanukkah.
Yes, they've got the Star of David cookie. They have the Rugula, which has a fluffy pastry filled with different things like apricot, chocolate, cinnamon. It's a really fun spot, and you can also find them at the Fashion Mall.
Wow, both locations.
Yes.
Okay, Taste of Italy, Panettone at
Yes.
Macri's Italian Bakery. That's up in northern Indiana and South Bend.
Yeah, panettone is a classic recipe. It came over from Milan. It's a very fluffy type of cake, very tall. This bakery has been around since 1978 in South Bend, so it's a classic staple in the community.
One of my favorite stories, the Sisters of St. Benedict, the monastery in southern Indiana. They've got a bakery in Ferdinand and make ginger snaps in Springerly there in southern Indiana.
Classic flavor of the holidays, ginger snaps. You've got the cinnamon, the nutmeg, and they do a beautiful job at shipping it. So if you're last minute looking for someone, a gift for somebody, they always package their items beautifully, and you can order them all online.
Yeah, and they have a real business down
Yes,
there,
it's
don't
a
they, with the
gorgeous
bakery?
website. I've
Yeah.
used it to ship to folks on my team as well.
All right, some great international desserts, perhaps inspiration for you during this holiday season. Brittany Smith from Yelp. As always, thank you.
Yes.
Merry Christmas and happy
Yes,
holidays.
likewise. Thanks so much.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Well, coming up, we've probably all done it. Dropped our phone in water and then panicked about how to dry it out. Well, a Central Indiana company, a growing company, says it has developed revolutionary technology to not only effectively dry out cell phones, but other electronics as well. Dr. K will be here with details in this month's Innovator segment. Stay with us. Well, Carmel-based Redux can restore hearing instruments to their peak operational state in about 14 minutes with just the push of a button. In this month's Innovators with Dr. K, learn how it all works. Take it away, Dr. K.
Well, thank you, Gary. As you know, we always try to look for innovations. They're going to disrupt an industry, and in this case, they're going to disrupt but also help an industry. So I'm very happy to welcome Ruben Zielinski, the president and CEO of Redux, and Matt Hay, Director of Audiology Sales. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. K.
Great to have you. I always start with this. In your own words, explain what is Redux?
It's actually a vacuum drying system.
Okay.
We pull a strong vacuum and we boil water at room temperature. Water normally boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit on your stove.
Right.
But pulling in a strong vacuum, we can boil it at room temperature.
Interesting.
We look for an endpoint using a humidity sensor, and we
Right.
can guarantee all the water is removed from an electronic device that's in that chamber.
Wow.
By measuring the humidity that goes to zero.
That's really neat. Why, I was asked, why the name Redux? Where did that come from? Is there a backstory? Is there...
There is. Originally, Redux started as device recovery systems.
Okay.
That was the original business plan. Once we realized, because we were trying to recover data from a phone,
Right.
once we realized we could recover the device, we changed it to Revive Electronics, and that's where we're incorporated in Indiana.
Okay.
We wanted to build a brand, so
Right.
we hired a marketing firm, and we identified Redux as a brand name that we wanted to use. We bought the URL for a small fee,
okay.
and now we do business as Redux.
Interesting. So the name itself is more of a brand name, not really representing something special.
Well, Redux actually in the Webster's Dictionary means to bring back or revive.
Oh, wow, fantastic, great. So what's the potential market for this innovation?
Well, we're in 2,300 mobile phone retail stores right now.
Okay.
We're about to go to 3,000 in the first quarter. But we've identified a new vertical for hearables and hearing aids.
Right.
There's approximately 50 million people in the United States that are hard of hearing. Only about 20% are served. And there's 470 million worldwide. And we believe we could serve a vast majority of those. If we look ahead in the next 3 to 5 years, using the same mobile phone retail market business plan that we have, we think this could be a $100 million a year business.
My Lord. So, when I went online and looked, Matt, you might answer this, the competition. How are you guys at Redux distinct from when I looked at competitors?
That's a great question. I've worn hearing aids half of my life. I'm actually deaf without my implant, so keeping mine operating well is particularly important to me. What's different about Redux, there are a number of dehumidifiers on the market. When somebody gets something like their first line of defense is usually a box of Uncle Ben's. What's different here, Ruben mentioned the vacuum dryer. Instead of just being a dehumidifier or rice, we're drying hearing aids to a complete endpoint. We're measuring humidity in real time. We're verifying it with our app of how much moisture was removed.
Right.
And all of that's happening in under 14 minutes, which really puts us in a totally different category than any other existing tool for drying a hearing aid or a hearing instrument.
Because the other competitors take, first of all, much longer, right? And they don't monitor.
Exactly. And an added benefit of this, hearables are becoming increasingly popular.
Right.
It's not just limited to hearing aids. Noise canceling, noise magnification, being able to listen to music,
right.
All things that we can dry in there in a matter of minutes.
Incredible. Wow. So what about funding? Do you have some sources up to this point? Where are you at?
Well, there was a story run in the IBJ several years ago.
Okay.
And a local investor, Scott Moorhead, who owns Round Room, that's our parent company, saw this, called his CFO and said, go capture these guys.
Wow.
And so we got an early start by putting these dryers into mobile phone retail stores, one of the large providers.
Right.
And we're able to tease out the retail environment, how it works, how to monetize it. And so we have access to all the capital we need for growing the business and expanding the market.
Wow. So from cell phones, you realized this other industry, and your investor bought into that as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Part of my background, I used to work for a hearing aid company way back then in 2000, a startup company. They were disposable hearing aids. They were called Songbird Hearing. It failed. I learned a lot of lessons from that, but I learned a lot about hearing aids, and I knew someday that we would dry hearing aids, because all hearing aids, any hearing instrument, any hearable that's in your ear canal is going to take up perspiration.
Right. Because the human body.
Exactly, the human body. It's constantly evaporating water.
Wow.
Yes.
So where do you go from here in like next steps ahead in the next few months? Where are we going?
Well, I believe the future's pretty bright. As I indicated, we have Matt Hay on board here to drive audiology sales. We're working with the hearing care professionals. We're working with the manufacturers. Everyone realizes that this is a problem. The FDA is changing their regulations in 2020, and they're going to allow over-the-counter sales of hearing aids.
Wow.
So we believe there's a huge retail market play for over-the-counter hearing aids, as well as the professional segment.
That's great. Well, as I do on each and every show, guys, I try to give some prescriptions. So I gave 3 knowledge factors for you guys. The first is knowledge in business. I know you have some knowledge, obviously, but as an engineer, you want to understand it's a business, not just a technology, which I believe you now know. Second is knowledge in manufacturing. I know we had chatted, and you're working with a lot of the manufacturers already and talking to a number of them, so I think that's smart because they'll know how to scale the operations you will need. Sure. And the third is knowledge with investors. I know you have an investor, but they'll reach a point where you need some real context in the industry itself, and they can help you, again, scale. So I hope those help you guys.
That's awesome advice. Thanks very much, Dr. K.
Great, guys.
Yes.
So where can the audience find you?
Redux.com and Matt.Hay at Redux.com.
All right, sounds great. Well, there you have it, Gary. A really interesting innovation that's going to help a lot of people, and it's right here in Indiana. Back to you, Gary.
All right, Dr. K, thank you. Well, when the Rose Parade rolls through the streets of Pasadena, California on New Year's Day, a Hoosier hero will be featured on the Donate Life float. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta has more. Kylie.
Thank you very much, Gary. The Donate Life float celebrates the people who have given the gift of life. For one Hoosier family, the parade will hold special meaning. Tristan Hackman's portrait will be part of the float. She died of a drug overdose at 28 years old and through organ donation saved 4 lives. Indiana Donor Network says her story speaks to the importance of donor registration, which recently achieved a major milestone in Indiana. Here to tell us more is Tammy Hackman, Tristan's mother, and also Indiana Donor Network CEO Kelly Hanner. Thank you both for coming to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Tammy, I want to start with you. It must be so bittersweet to be going to this parade to see your daughter on the float. Tell us a little bit about Tristan and how her donation really changed other people's lives.
Tristan she liked to give people second chances. So she was always wanting, to do something to help people out. And when we lost Tristan, we knew that at that point it was a good time for her to be able to share that even more by being a donor. We weren't sure if she was registered to be one, so just to make all of the things that were bad into something good, we decided to let her be a donor, and she saved 4 lives, and we've been honored to meet her double lung recipient, and we've heard from her heart recipient, and we're excited, and we've been able to share her story with other people and encouraging them to be donors and to share the donor life with the rest of us at Indiana Donor Network.
We're glad you share her story with us today. And Kelly, the Indiana Donor Network recently hit a major milestone, 4 million Hoosiers now registered to donate. What's the significance of reaching that 4 million mark?
Well, it's been a work in progress for years, so we're really excited that 4 million Hoosiers have registered their decision to be a donor. We're in the top 7 of all the different states as far as donor registry share for people over the age of 18. And so about 76% of licensed drivers have designated themselves to be a donor. So we're really excited about that milestone.
Good Indiana success story. Tammy, one of the unique things I think most people know about the Rose Parade is that all of the floats are made out of flowers and other natural things. And your family actually got to put the finishing touches on Tristan's florograph. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was wonderful. When we received it, we opened it up, and the first thing you could do was smell how wonderful and fresh it smelled. A lot of cinnamon, and the background was to be finished, and her eyebrows, which once we put those in, we're able to put the eyebrows in and do the background. It brought her to life. And we got to share that with probably around 75 of our closest family and friends. And it was a wonderful experience for us to be able to actually do it by hand and finish it up.
And Kelly, 4 million, obviously a big mark, but I'm sure you have more goals. So where do you go from 4 million? What's the next goal for Indiana Donor Network?
Well, we'd love for 100% of Hoosiers to be registered as donors. So we've got that 24% that we're still trying to reach. We don't want anybody to ever rule themselves out as a donor. So make that decision. You can go to the BMV, you can go to our website. It's very different than years ago when you had to go into the BMV, but you can go to indianadonornetwork.org and register your decision in a matter of minutes. So we're trying to reach that other 24% so we can save more lives.
Do you think technology really played a big role in helping hit that number? I mean, like you said, years ago you had to make a special trip, and now it's so easy.
Right, it is, and we have partnerships with many different organizations throughout the state, and we have iPads that we can just register somebody in the matter of minutes. So technology has definitely played a big part in it. It makes it a lot easier.
And just organ donation in general, Tammy, and for your daughter, does it help for your family does it in some way carry her legacy forward, kind of honor her life?
Oh yeah, it does. She's a never-ending story, as we call her now, because she's filling out lives and bringing other lives in, people to life, and giving life back, and that's what it's all about, is giving life back.
And I know you get to go to Pasadena and see the float, so have a wonderful trip, and I hope you really enjoy seeing her picture there in the center stage.
Thank you.
All right, Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, still ahead, in our Eye on Economic Development segment, we head around Indiana to look back on how the state's economy performed in 2019. But first, the Marion Knights are on a roll in athletics. Marion's volleyball team celebrating a national championship, but they're not the only team there playing for national titles. Marion Athletic Director and Indiana basketball legend Steve Downing explains what's behind the success in football, soccer, and cycling. Stay with us. Well, check this out. It is motorsports racing pioneer Bill Simpson making headlines a few years back by getting set on fire to demonstrate the effectiveness of his groundbreaking safety equipment, the world's first temperature-resistant racing suit introduced to him by NASA astronaut Pete Conrad. Well, the racing community mourned the passing this week of the innovative racing safety pioneer Bill Simpson. The fireproof suit that he brought to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 1967 really isn't the only safety feature he introduced to auto racing. He designed, developed, and produced more than 200 motorsports products, including helmets, gloves, and seat belts. He started his career as a driver, made 52 starts in the IndyCar Series, including a 13th place finish at the 1974 Indy 500. Simpson was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America in 2003 and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame in 2014. Bill Simpson was 79. Well, now in his 9th season as Marion University Athletic Director, Indianapolis native Steve Downing is overseeing unprecedented athletic success at the school's campus on the city's northwest side. Bill Benner has more in this Studio I interview. Bill.
Well, thanks, Gary. And we are joined by a man who in Indiana needs no introduction, a member of the 1969 Washington Continental State Championship basketball team alongside George McInnes. IU, great player at Indiana University, nice, solid pro career, and came back to his hometown 9 years ago to become athletic director at Marion University. Steve Downing, welcome to the program. Great to have you on. Let's talk about Marion. What an incredible run of success. And early, the first Saturday in December, your volleyball team wins the national championship, your women's soccer team finishes second, and your football team qualifies for yet another NAIA national championship. What a run for Marion.
Well, it's been a very good fall, and I've had coaches that are really committed to the program, and to tell you I was surprised would be a little bit of a understatement, because you need a lot of good things to happen for you when you win a championship at any level, and things have gone well for us for both of those teams, and hopefully the same will happen with football this weekend.
Well, and of course we know that the secret sauce. It starts with, but it starts with recruiting. I mean, obviously you're recruiting great student athletes.
Yeah, and that's the word we use, student athlete. And I tell all our prospects, all our recruits, that if I can't trust you in the classroom, I certainly won't trust you to win a ball game for me on Saturday, because all those intangibles that are required in the classroom, sacrifice, commitment, dedications, are exact qualities to be successful athletically.
Let's talk briefly about everyone. Marion volleyball, again, under Ashley Pritchard and national championship. I mean, they're a great program.
Yes, Ashley is the first coach I hired when I got to Marion, and she's had steady progress. And the last 3 years, she's won the conference championship, and she went into this year with a strong team, and she felt that she could get to the nationals anyway. So again, Gary Yohe, our volleyball coach, women's soccer coach, this is the first time we've ever had anything like that before, where they played in the championship game. They beat the #1 team, and then the next day had to play against the #2 team in the country, and fell a little bit short.
And Mark Henninger, Marion football has been outstanding almost from the get-go.
Well, yes. I mean, football is something our president really believes in, and we've done really, really good jobs. And there's a lot of talent here in Indianapolis, and I think we should be good. And Mark has taken advantage of this city and recruiting, and so we have some great athletes here.
And not just combined to the sports that we just mentioned. Scott Heddy's men's basketball team, currently 8th in the country, ranked 8th in the country. Katie Gerald's, her women's basketball team, ranked 4th in the country.
Yes, and my wrestling team is ranked 4th in the country too. So we had a great fall. Now we're transitioning to winter, and so hopefully these guys can step up and try to replicate what our fall sports have taken.
And not to be overlooked, and Marion Cycling has formed a great partnership with the Velodrome out there by campus, and they are the preeminent all-college cycling program.
Yeah, we recruit all over the world. I mean, we have world-class athletes, and Dean Peterson and Michael Kabansky have done a really good job assembling it. So we want to win, and so they have kind of set a standard for all of us to follow, really.
Well, Steve, we couldn't be more proud of what Marion is doing, representing the city of Indianapolis. And again, we hope for the best with the football game this weekend. Steve Downie.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you having me on, Bill.
You appreciate it.
Great guy.
You're welcome. Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, the landscape of computer science, it's really dramatically changed since Nextech launched nearly 5 years ago. At that time, there was confusion around what computer science actually was. And in fact, 5 years ago, only about 18% or so of Indiana schools offered computer science courses. That's changing in a big way. In our Eye on Education segment this week, I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Nextech President Karen Jung to talk about how the conversation and legislative attention has changed the way computer science is viewed in Indiana. And Karen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
As I mentioned, Nextech, describe Nextech, because you found next year would be your 5th anniversary. Really an outgrowth from a philanthropic standpoint from the ExactTarget sale to Salesforce. Talk about that whole process.
Yes, so back in 2014, after the acquisition closed, ExactTarget had at the time a foundation making charitable contributions in the community in a number of different areas. The foundation was not part of the acquisition, so we made a decision to take the investment dollars that we had, reclassify as a public charity, and focus exclusively on bringing computer science to Indiana classrooms throughout the state.
5 years, or almost 5 years now. Talk about the change that you've seen in computer science, just in the way that people understand it, support it in the state of Indiana.
It's amazing the transformation. You shared the statistic in terms of 18%. That number has grown drastically, and a large part of it is just the commitment that's happened both at a national and local level. Last year, Governor Holcomb, with his leadership, helped spearhead legislation to require all schools to offer computer science by 2021. Wow. That was a fantastic move that catapulted Indiana to really the top of the national conversation. But then back that up as well with a $6 million appropriation for the 2019-21 budget cycle. So there's definitely been the commitment. We've seen the growth and adoption of computer science grow to 60%, but there's still a long way to go to get to that 2021 compliance.
Yeah, and as we were talking in the social media lounge, you said Indiana now, when it comes to computer science, the support for computer science curriculum is a leader.
We truly are. There are about 9 different policies that organizations will look at to see where a state is relative to computer science. We've adopted all 9 of those. In 2016, we were one of the first states to have standards across all K-12 grade levels, as well as in 2019, we became the first state at the time to actually offer standardized testing for computer science at grades 4 and 6 levels. So we truly are leading that conversation now.
And a real focus, I know, of Nextech is on teachers, on professional development, focusing on teachers that supports the teachers and also has impact, obviously, in the classroom with the kids.
Yes, we early on had to make that decision of how do we bring computer science to the classroom, and decided let's train teachers. By doing that, we can reach scale at a much faster level than we would otherwise if we went direct to consumer, direct to student, if you will. I think back on that first year, we trained 21 teachers from 11 different schools. In 2018-19 academic year, it was close to 1,600 teachers from about 430 different schools, and really from all across the state.
Yeah, amazing growth. As you look, I know you had a couple of big announcements too last week as we're getting ready to head into 2020. Talk about those announcements and how that will impact the organization.
As we think about continuing to meet teachers in schools where they are with the implementation of computer science, we have made an investment, a decision to have our first residential professional development program next summer, where we're hoping to bring together at least 200 high school teachers from across the state, not only to learn a specific curriculum they can take back to the classroom, but to really foster that community. Many of these teachers are on an island, truly might be the only person in their school or even district teaching computer science. So we made that announcement last week and excited to bring that to fruition. We've also continually looking how we can better engage students. where it makes sense. And so we announced a statewide CS for Good competition. First year that we'll have it and available to elementary, middle, and high school students, with the ultimate goal we'll bring groups of students, finalists, to Indianapolis for a competition in front of industry panelists and select some pretty amazing winners.
Yeah, and again, that you talked about scale and the impact you're having in the classroom. I think you mentioned maybe around 1,500 or so students last year that were impacted by programs.
Oh, actually tens of thousands of students. Wow. If we look at, again, those 1,500 teachers that we taught, they're going back into classrooms with an average of 20 students. So the math adds up really great. And even better is it's not just the students they impact the year that we train them, but assume they teach 3 years. And so it's a compounding effect.
Next Tech, a great example of philanthropy in the tech community. Karen Jung, the president of the organization, thanks for joining us and for all you do. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Well, coming up in this month's Eye on Economic Development segment, we'll grade how the state's economy performed in 2019. Also look ahead to next year. KSM Location Advisor CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp are in studio with their take. They're in the social media lounge right now. Sponsored and presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, this year and the decade, for that matter, are almost in the books. So how did Indiana's economy perform this year, and how do things look for 2020? KSM Location Advisor CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp are here now to weigh in on those topics in this month's Eye on Economic Development segment, and welcome as always.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're at the end of the year here. Okay, let's get right to it. A lot happened in 2019. As we look around the state, first of all, Northwest Indiana, we were there for a road show, which we're going to rebroadcast next week from Northwest Indiana. A lot of change. Steel industry has changed. Tourism now beginning to come up. As you look at Northwest Indiana and things going on there, your take.
They've been on a hot streak for several years now, and you see a lot of capital being invested. And I think one of the things that's really cool up there, they are trying to actually get people to relocate there where they're not just working there but living there. So, you know, I think they're making all the right moves in that part of the state.
Yeah, there's that, and Tim mentioned the capital investment. I mean, a lot of industrial investment is going in there, so you have that. But then there's the Hard Rock Casino. I mean, you've got a blend of different pieces of the economy.
Yep, tourism too, really beginning to take off with the national park designation at the Dunes. Northeast Indiana, Fort Wayne has a lot going on there. Let's go to the southwest part of the state, though. Evansville and that region, southwest, they seem to have momentum going as well.
Yeah, it's a long list of things, but the Atlas project comes to mind, and they've had like expansion after expansion down there. And, you know, Katie and I were talking earlier about I-69.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, it was an intentional result, right? That we're seeing economic growth there, and I-69 had a big part in that.
Is that because, you know, obviously it's been going for a while, and some people, I think, assumed, hey, it's going to happen right away, development, but obviously it takes time. So that traction, you're seeing that traction really beginning to happen on I-69.
Yeah, it's definitely, you get a first mover and the rest follow, so I think it's coming.
Another region, I think, that doesn't get a lot of attention but should is Southeast Indiana and the Ohio River Bridges Project and River Ridge Commerce Center, which just has gone off the charts from a focus standpoint, a growth standpoint.
Every time you drive down there, there's a new big project. They had that Farm Accord project this year, which was huge, big capital investment, ton of jobs. One Southern Indiana does a really nice job down there, and they have a lot of momentum.
Yeah, in fact, One Southern Indiana just this week getting a designation for a regional organization down there as well. And Katie, as you look at quality of life projects, those types of things in that area, and we were on the road to that region some months ago, how about operating as a region, not just in Southeast Indiana, but also bringing Louisville in and operating as that kind of cross-state region?
I've seen such, you know, you mentioned at the beginning the decade is changing. You think back over 10 years, it used to be quite separated, and they really do have a unified approach to economic development, which makes it so much easier to attract big projects because those big companies aren't that concerned about territory lines.
Exactly, geography. Okay, lots happened in 2019. Let's look ahead to 2020. Tim, I'll start with you. Well, first of all, 2019, the big story. Was there one big story you think in 2019 that really stood out?
You know, I thought the big story was you have all this like angry political discourse in the country, but in Indiana, I think for the most part, localities, whether it was Republican or Democratic controlled, both parties work together really well, and Katie and I do deals all across the country. Indiana really stands out in that way, and I think it's something the state should really be proud of.
Katie, your take on?
I agree with that. I would say for 2019, like I think about it from an economic development standpoint, the biggest thing that happened in my mind is Mayor Joe Hogsett and his administration. They're the leaders on this, but I strongly suspect it will have a ripple effect where they're looking at inclusive incentives and inclusive economic development, where they're kind of marrying community and economic development. While there may be some elements of that policy that pose challenges, I think the thought behind it is, the concept is kind of revolutionary for our part of the country, not for others.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see how other communities start marrying those two areas instead of operating in silos.
Okay, only have 30 seconds. Katie, I'll start with you. 2020, as we look ahead, what do you think the big story
I'm the
might be?
negative Nancy. I think the economy is going to tighten and it's going to have a big impact.
I think workforce continues to be a huge issue. You've got industrial competing with robots on the professional side. The millennials and Generation Z have a big impact on those issues.
Lots of stories to look ahead to. Great perspective, as always, Tim Cook and Katie Culp. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New
Thanks,
Year.
Gary. You too.
And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. Coming up next week, a special rebroadcast of our road show to Northwest Indiana. It's the gateway to Chicago, the state's second largest regional economy. Steel and heavy industry have been the main economic drivers in the region for more than 100 years. That is changing. We'll talk about the state of steel, the region's new economy, and how the Indiana Dunes new designation as a national park is fueling tourism growth. That's next week. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.